Really, the word wholesome is a great pointer. What is it to be wholesome? What is it to be whole? What is it to be without lack? So again, it's coming back to this place without debt, this place without lack. And again, when we crave things, and we unwisely crave things, or unwisely want things, right? So if we want unwisely, you know, it leads to that feeling of lack, right? And so we're not satisfied here and now. So how can we return to that satisfaction that is available here and now? And that is through this noble eightfold method, right? Now, this is actually going through kind of the noble, supramundane way. And this is, you can read about this in the Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya 117. This is the Great 40, but we're going to cover this here. And of course, it talks about right view comes first. Now, we can talk about what right view or viewing is, because it's not so much a viewpoint, it's an ongoing investigation or looking. But right view, the noble right view, is very much kind of, we can say, tied to understanding these four noble truths, right? So understanding, you know, this is dissatisfaction, this is the cause of dissatisfaction, and this is the end of dissatisfaction. So, and this is the path leading to the end of dissatisfaction. So that's part of right viewing, I would say, but it's directly understanding that through one's own direct experience themselves. So, there are three kinds of views here, you could say, and it talks about this in the Sutta. There's wrong view, which is you can get away with anything. You can go around just being a jerk. You can go around, you know, killing people and stealing things, and there's no consequences for your actions. But we can see through just kind of basic cause and effect that, like, no, there will be repercussions for that. The ordinary right view is more that of, well, you know, you're going to be punished, you know, all these bad things are going to happen to you. If you do good things will happen to you, and all that. And so that's all well and good, but it's also just subject to the fact that, again, things change over time, and it's not 100% foolproof. You know, you can still have, you know, misfortunate things. You can be the most upstanding person in the world, and misfortune will still come knocking at your door. And so, what is the way which is noble? What is the way that is completely kind of outside of this, which doesn't care if we just died in a video game so much, which is more reliable than this, right? And so this is the Noble Eightfold Method. And this is how we can practice the Noble Eightfold Method, and it starts with right viewing, which again is seeing, you know, seeing what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, right? And that's through understanding the cause of, you know, why we are dissatisfied and recognizing the end of it. Now, that's a really cool thing, and it's really wonderful. However, if we forget about it, what good is it going to do? If we're kind of out there, you know, in a situation that is far out there, say we get pulled over by a cop, say we, you know, our car has a problem, you know, something really wacky wild happens in our lives, right? Do we have the mindfulness, sati in the Pali language, do we have the remembrance to remember to actually look with this right viewing? Can we remember that, right? And even throughout our day, how often can we remember this? We can say, oh yeah, sure, I learned about this on like an intellectual level, but have we actually absorbed it? Have we actually taken it in, and can we remember it when we need to? You know? So this is what the practice of mindfulness of in and out breathing really helps with, right? Furthermore, it is bringing it back to analyzing things in a here now way by returning to the breath. And so this is knowing, hey, am I breathing in long? Is this an in breath or is this an out breath? So what is the quality of the breath? Is it long or short? Is it long Or is it, yeah, long or short, or is it in or out? Right? So... that's kind of how we can practice sati, how we can practice mindfulness, how we can practice this remembrance, if you will. So these are 2 factors on the Noble Eightfold method, the Noble Eightfold path we're covering. So the mindfulness to remember and the viewing. So remembering to look. Now we're adding another element. And this is actually something which can sometimes be a little bit missing in general mindfulness kind of practice, or is overlooked, which is the effort. So we're remembering to look and then change from unwholesome to wholesome. So now what we're doing is actually going to kind of plant in wholesome thoughts, rather than just allowing the same old garbage to come in or whatever. This isn't really a passive process with this kind of practice. It is, hey, we're actually going to go in and plant some nice wholesome thoughts in terms of like, wow, isn't this lovely to just be here right now, breathing in long, playing a fun game, you know, and breathing out long, just enjoying all the cool colors on the screen. Again, my gameplay, not the most top-notch, but that's okay right now, because that's not the focus of this stream. The focus of this stream is the conversation, and maybe coming back to a little bit of balance. But right now, while I'm just kind of talking about sort of the basics and what have you, I kind of feel like focusing a little bit more on this, right? So the game's a nice little background. But again, coming back to the wholesome thoughts and the discernment, right? So again, the idea here is that the mindfulness, the viewing, and the effort, they run circles around each other. It goes round and round and round once you get these things going, once they're up and running. You remember this is a breath, like a in-breath, you put in some wholesome thoughts, like, oh wow, this is a nice, you know, long in-breath, congratulations for remembering this. Out-breath, that sort of thing. And then they start to run, they run around, and the investigation. So then what does this lead to? This leads to the fourth factor on the path, which is the right attitude, right intention, right thought. The Samasamkapa. This is the mojo. But yeah, this is the right attitude. This is now these things are running around in circles, the right mindfulness, the right viewing, the right effort. Now that they're running circles around each other, we come on upon that right attitude, which is the attitude of a winner, which is an attitude of we can do this, we can gladden the mind. So gladdening the mind, which is part of mindfulness of in and out breathing, is actually really linked to right effort, right? So again, it's applying the right effort to gladden that mind, to bring in those wholesome thoughts, to sustain those wholesome thoughts. And again, once they're sustained, once those 3 factors of the path are running circles around each other, we come right back to that right attitude, which is the attitude of a winner, which is the attitude of I can do this, I can gladden the mind. It's also the attitude of immediate renunciation. We might hear something like renunciation and think of a super pious thing or some super far out thing. But it's immediate renunciation of here and now. I don't need anything other than what is currently happening. I am satisfied. I am a happy camper. So right now I'm happy, you know, with the way the stream is going. You know, I don't need to even beat this boss. I can just enjoy moving towards this boss. Enjoy the process, right? But I know that I can, you know, I can. But I don't need to, right? But there is that I can do this, you know. And eventually that really comes down to, hey, whatever the situation is, I know that I can handle it. You know, it might not turn out the best in sort of the ordinary right view way, but we can handle it. Why? Because we're on the supra-mundane right view. And once you tap into this, this is something that is truly marvelous, truly wonderful, coming back to that place of satisfaction and ease. It is, yes, something marvelous. And so it's okay. So yeah, that is the right attitude. So, now with an attitude that's nice and wholesome and we don't want anything, and we can do this. We're not super averse to things. We're gonna be pretty okay people, morally speaking, because we're not gonna want anything. We're not gonna want to harm people. We're not gonna want to be a punk. Our speech is gonna come much easier together in terms of the way that we kind of speak. So right speech is another kind of aspect of the path. Right action is another aspect of the path. And right sort of livelihood or lifestyle is another aspect of the path, right? So these are kind of the more, you could say, out in the world, more morality sort of based stuff. But that comes together quite easily when one is practicing in this manner. Furthermore, if we're talking about in the immediate sense, when you go into seclusion and you sit down, you're not hurting anybody. So for this kind of period of time, our morality is good, and we're having that wholesome intention again. We are sitting so that we may clear out our mind, and that is going to be a benefit to us as well as everyone we meet. So it's actually of great benefit, and so practicing something like mindfulness of in and out breathing, when we remember, it's very helpful to congratulate and see that this is actually a very helpful and impactful training. I'm just going to take a drink here. So we completed the first level there on normal. Again, a little bit more focused on the conversation than the gameplay, but we'll kind of bring it back to a little bit more focus on the gameplay now. So we've pretty much covered the Noble Eightfold Path up until the last aspect here, which is the Samadhi, which is often translated as right concentration. It is, which probably isn't always the most useful. We might think of a hard concentration. But another way that's really helpful to put it is kind of a collectiveness or unification of mind. That's the one that I like using. Unification of mind for Samadhi. We're gathering up all the other factors, they're coming together, and the mind is unified. See, now it is wholesome. The mind's wholesome, it's not fighting against each other. So we might have a mind which is kind of conflicted, you know, and we can get into the hindrances a bit, like one might be doubt or whatever. But the mind's like, I don't know about this, if I can really gladden the mind or whatever. And then part of it's like, I can, and so it's conflicted. But when we come back into this wholesome unification of mind, there no longer is that conflict. The mind's running together. And so that is the Samadhi. And now that the mind is unified, it is fit for work, and we can continue to just enjoy these nice wholesome breaths, enjoy what's happening here and now, and we can also investigate and look into the causes of dukkha, of dissatisfaction, and the end of dukkha and dissatisfaction. So we can see the end of dissatisfaction there.